تبدأ الآن جلسة بعنوان حال غرف الأخبار بعد كورونا مع الباحث الأمريكي ميريل براون.
Good day. My name is Meireles Brown. I'm the CEO and founder of the News Project, a New York-based company that we established in 2018 to help news entrepreneurs build successful businesses. Thank you for inviting me to attend today, and I'm pleased to be speaking to such an outstanding group of executives and entrepreneurs. It goes without saying that 2020 has been a turbulent year and a tragic time. It's been a difficult time in media as well, quite obviously. For local media in particular, this period has meant an acceleration of the decline of newspapers in many parts of the world. And the national media as well are under enormous economic and editorial pressures. 1 month into the pandemic, I wrote a piece for CNN that got a fair amount of attention because of a rather gloomy forecast I was posing for media. And what I concluded in this piece is that in many ways, we really are going to be on our own in terms of our media consumption. My piece also lamented the accelerating damage that COVID-19 would inflict on the news industry, on the Hollywood community, on advertising, on newspapers, and more. The thesis of the piece was that we would ultimately have fewer voices. The thesis was also that consolidation worldwide would make fewer and fewer opportunities for these new voices to surface. And let me read you, as we see on the screen, from the closing sentence of that piece. A world with fewer authoritative, validated voices, fewer channels, and fewer media outlets lies ahead in the aftermath of the coronavirus era. Hopefully, as is often the case, new outlets, most likely digital ones in our cities and towns that cover vital topics, will continue their growth and fill our community voids. But until that happens in the period just ahead, we'll be increasingly on our own. The thesis also said that chunks of the media would increasingly look like an oligopoly, and that in particular, Amazon, Netflix, and Apple, among others, would be increasingly important in our daily lives. As it turned out, we would be staying at home for a long time, and while we're home, information about the world around us, which we obtain via local and national news, would become more and more difficult to wrap our minds around. What I didn't foresee was the rapid splintering that has marked the past 8 months. I did not foresee that simple matters of prevention like mask wearing and social distancing would become controversial and divide the US and the populations of other nations. I didn't think massive misinformation carried through some global media organizations and across social media platforms would create a situation in which the United States would perform so poorly in limiting the spread of the virus. 300,000 people are dead here, and the poorest implementation of public health measures in the developed world has taken place in this country. And I did not foresee the magnitude of indifference to the plight of the nation's health that we would see not just from an abdicating president of the United States, but also from the nation's leadership more broadly defined. The news media bears some of the responsibility for this set of circumstances, for as has often been the case over the past 4 years, President Trump has been allowed to dominate the public discussion. The news media has not pushed hard enough on President Trump, have not pushed private industry, advertising companies, universities, and others to invest in public education, to encourage safe behaviors, and an embrace of the newly available vaccine. We all have some responsibility in the United States and Western Europe and elsewhere for introducing this vaccine properly and efficiently. But the media has also changed for some ways for the better. News consumption is high, and there's good news for some news publishers who see an opportunity to engage in new ways with more people and engage with new forms of news. News publishers are responding with new products and new initiatives. Local news is more valued than ever before. The public is more and more willing to pay for news as well. As this slide suggests, the data is encouraging about news consumption. 30% of Americans are willing to pay for well-researched, reliable news after the pandemic, a very encouraging figure. And that figure is even higher among the young, where 53% of people ages 18 to 24 say they're interested in paying for news, compared with only 15% of people 55 or older. So in terms of young people consuming the news, that's good news about the period we're living through. Surely these positives are going to be proven to be helpful to the news industry over time. At the same time, there are new initiatives throughout the global news industry that are going to be helpful. In this country, for instance, there's an initiative called the American Journalism Project, which is raising hundreds of millions of dollars for news. There are better tools and technologies and better ad tools for news entrepreneurs and news sites being produced by people like my company and by the global publishing force WordPress, which is also an investor in the News Project. There are, on the other hand, more and more news deserts. In the United States, a quarter of the newspapers have closed since 2004, and 1,800 communities here have no local news coverage at all. 36,000 job losses in the news media have taken place since the pandemic began. We need new solutions for news. Perhaps most importantly, these are difficult times for verified information, as I suggested earlier. For facts, and as I said in my CNN piece in April, we are in many ways very much on our own, isolated and seeking guidance and looking for new ways to stay engaged and informed. We're still going to be quarantined in our homes in many places still for many months, and certainly over the New Year's holidays, even as vaccines roll out around the world, we live in a very difficult environment. What we do about this set of facts, and the fact that many segments of the public has little faith in the news media, is the question before us. We need to keep newsrooms afloat with new funding mechanisms, and as I mentioned, the public seems more willing than ever to pay for news. We need new approaches to covering stories that engage and inform people beyond simply giving them lengthy pieces and long television segments. We need to encourage entrepreneurialism in the news field, including within newsrooms. People need to be able to launch new ideas. We need to help the public learn to be better consumers of information through more news literacy programs. Some universities are doing important work in this regard, as are some nonprofits. The industry itself hasn't done enough. I predict this will be a long process, but that the economic impact of the virus and the restructuring around it will create new urgency around the ongoing reinvention of news. It's up to all of us to keep at it collectively. We can't just leave the public on their own. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for participating in the conference. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.